Hi, my name is Christopher Borghese, and today I will be talking about the events that occurred in Goiania, Brazil. First, I will go over the outline. In the table of contents, I will be talking about the purpose and objectives after, context of Goiania, Brazil, which include the Figure 1, which is a geographical graph of Goiania, Brazil, CS137 explanation, which contains Figure 2, a representation of CS137 mechanism, health effects of CS137 exposure on the next slide, which includes a figure 3 of symptoms and number of people affected. And after that, a dose information, with figure 4 about talking about 46 dose exposure individuals. After that slide, I will be talking about what occurs 10 years later after the incident, which includes the figure 5, which is materials that may have radioactive ingredients still left behind in Goiânia, Brazil. After that, I will be giving a brief summary and then a list of references. The incident occurred in September 13 of 1987. It was caused primarily because of radioactive contamination of an abandoned piece of hospital machinery. It was considered one of the top 10 nuclear disasters to date as it was classified at a level 5 incidence. I will be also talking about what the CS-137 exposure and radioactive material is, and the implications of being exposed and the diseases it caused. Geographical explanation. As you can see here, Goiânia is located in Brazil. Through examinations have determined that the radioactive substance has spread over a large area by wind and rain. CS-137 contamination was found as far away as 100 kilometers from Goiânia, probably brought there by commuters from the capital. When the Goiânia Institute of Radiotherapy relocated, they left behind many old hospital machines and supplies that would not play a role at their new location. An old teletherapy unit containing CS-137 was one of the machines left in the abandoned building. Rummaging through the abandoned building, two men found the machine and sold it to a local junkyard. When employees at the junkyard dismantled the machine, the remaining CS-137 was released and exposed into the community. On this slide, I will be talking about the CS-137 machine that was left behind by the Goiânia Institute of Radiotherapy. This is a teletherapy radiation capsule composed of the following. A is an international standard source holder, usually lead. B is a retaining ring. And C, a teletherapy source composed of two nested stainless steel canisters welded to two stainless steel lids surrounding a protective internal shield, usually uranium metal or a tungsten alloy. And G is a cylinder of radioactive source material, often but not always cobalt-60. In the Goiânia incident, this was cesium-137. Cesium-137 is a radioactive isotope of cesium which is prevalent due to its spontaneous production, which occurs as a result of nuclear fission of other radioactive materials. Employees at the junkyard were fascinated by the blue powder that glowed in the dark that was hiding in the machine, and unaware of its many dangers and its repercussions, they distributed to the family and friends nearby. Health effects of the exposure to CS-137 in Goiânia, Brazil, as you can see here, included symptoms of bone marrow depression, acute radiation syndrome, local radiation injuries, and internal contamination. External exposure to large amounts of CS-137 could also cause burns, acute radiation, sickness, and even death. Exposure to CS-137 can increase the risk of cancer because of exposure to high-energy gamma radiation. As you can see on the next slide, I will be talking about the dose exposure of the 46 individuals that experienced most radioactive exposure. The outcomes for the 46 most contaminated people are shown in the chart below. Several people survived high dose of radiation. This is thought in some cases to be because the dose was fractioned. Given time, the body's repair mechanisms will reserve cell damage caused by radiation. If the dose is spread over a long time period, these mechanisms can mitigate the effects of radiation poisoning. About 100,000 people were examined for radioactive contamination. Of these, 244 were found to be contaminated with cesium chloride. After decontamination procedures, 49 of those were interned for medical observation. One estimate was that a total of 2,000 people received high radiation doses. Some effort is being made to examine all persons who lived within a certain radius of the major sites of contamination. As you can see here, The most people that were exposed was less than 0.5% of dose exposure. In this slide, I will be talking about the radioactive material that is left in Goiania, Brazil after 10 years. As you can see here, 10% is still under investigation. 35% is other, 20% are lightning rods, and 35% are x-rays, which are left behind on certain hospitals. In summary, the incident at Goiania, Brazil was a very devastating one, which included the deaths of a 6-year-old girl who had come into contact with the CS-137. From this event, we have learned the importance of education and proper disposal of radioactive material so it doesn't come into contact with the community. With efforts from programs to allow for better disposal, communities will be at lower risk of coming into contact with contaminated materials. At last, I want to thank you, and this is the list of references.